けど久しぶりにバイブス上げてこう우리 선택이 있을까?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Castaway Anime Podcast. I'm Neon Manta.
And I'm Crunchy Bagels.
And we're back talking more Frieren. Everyone loves it. You know it. We know it. I love it. You love it. We love it. And we're here talking about episodes 13 through 20 of the Frieren anime. And if you enjoy listening to the podcast, be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all the newest episodes. Now, grab a drink, kick back, and listen up because this may take a while.
Yeah, so Frieren, we all know it. It's the talk of the town in the anime community right now. It's an Iyashikei, very well animated, very pretty, very atmospheric, fantasy anime. And it was one of the shows, right, of all the shows we could be covering right now, it's the one that I expected to always have something big to talk about. Always just want to dig deep into every episode and what it means and what it gives us as a viewer. I don't really feel it with this one. Like the final three definitely give me a lot to think about and a lot to talk about. And I definitely think that's where the series... Honestly, those final three episodes of this block are my favorite of the series, except for the first four. Best episodes in the series ever since the beginning four that started us on this journey to begin with. But up to that point, it very much leans on the Iyashikei stuff.
Yeah, that's what Frieren's all about, man. It's a fantasy going about on this big, decade-long quest up to the most northern port of the kingdom of the continent in search of what are we on the search for again? We're trying to reconnect with the dead, and we have to do it at the demon's castle.
Yeah. Are you forgetting already? Are you the one with amnesia for once as opposed to me?
Okay, I remember it now. It's just that we've been taking so many detours. That's like, oh right, this is the final goal.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because no, I'm not saying it's bad.
No, none of it's bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's still in the running for a 9 out of 10. A pretty light one as of now, but it's still in the running for that. But it's just there's something about Frieren, just the act of watching it, that makes me innately happy. It's just inherently fun to sit down and watch, so much so that I think a nigh infinite amount of these characters' journeys with each other, so long as it didn't sit on its laurels too much, I think an infinite amount of it would be, at the very least, somewhat enjoyable to me, just because of its surface level aesthetic and appeals, but it's definitely not quite what I expected given the first 4 episodes. Because I feel like ever since those first 4 episodes, right, those were the meat and bones of what this series is about, and ever since then we've been sort of taking the long way around to get to the heart of things. And
I feel like that's
kind of the point.
Kind of the point.
Yeah, it is kind of the point. But at the same time, it also means that it peaks early on, and ever since then, it's been kind of... It's been good. I like it. Great, even. But
I think I can pinpoint why we may not be have too much to say about it for this podcast. Because it's just the show that it is not really designed to be picked apart in a podcast roundtable discussion. It's more of something to be either taken in the moment and maybe more in a video essay where you can pick apart the themes of it over a deeper analytical deep dive. Whereas we're just to recount what happens in the episode here would just be boring because you could just go watch the episode. It's not like a Jujutsu Kaisen or a Undead Unluck where we could talk about all the highs and the lows of the narrative constantly ebbing and flowing. Because this one, it's a whole lot of one and not the other.
Stark forgot Fern's birthday, and he gets her a bracelet with an inverted lotus that means that he'll love her forever. This is... Okay, to be fair, that's actually one of the cuter moments of the first part of the block.
That's the thing. All of the things that happen all the slow moments in this show are good. I was never watching the show and being like, ooh, this is a ooh, I'm getting so ooh, but it's just the kind of show it is, and I think that's part of the issue is that I think, and I don't mean to speak on your behalf, so please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going off of what you have said before as a infamous Eurocamp hater. That when it comes to serialized television shows, do you much prefer narrative driven ones than Iyashikei ones if given the choice?
I both agree and disagree with that. Agree in the sense that, yeah, I think I do slightly prefer plot-driven shows nowadays, but obviously, Dragon Maid is my second favorite anime of all time. It's a masterpiece, so there are exceptions to the rules, and obviously that's your second favorite too, so we're both in the same camp on that.
I think the difference
Eurocamp
between
in the sense that I find this show legitimately funny. Granted, maybe if I rewatched Eurocamp, I'd think it's funny. But I do really like seeing the interactions between the characters in this show. I think Fern and Stark are both really endearing and fun to see interact and slowly but surely fall in love. It's inevitable at this point. They've
my
been
favorite
signaling
dynamic
the
in the
ship
show.
hard. What do you say?
Oh, I said they have my favorite dynamic in the whole show.
I definitely like their dynamic a lot, although I'd say that Frieren in isolation is my favorite character in the show still, because she has the most attachment to the current narrative and themes of the show as I see it, and is the most interesting to think about. Whereas Stark and Fern are more so, at the very least for this specific block of episodes, have just been fun to see on screen. And obviously, that is not a negative thing, obviously. I'm saying they're fun, but at the same time, I do like thinking about Frieren's conundrum a lot more.
Yeah, if we're talking about, like, most relevant to the narrative, Stark has been the least prominent of our three that turned into four, then went back to three for right now, party members. And the focus has mainly been on Frieren, Fern, and Sein, who we'll get into in a bit. But the point I wanted to make a little earlier was that I feel like the difference between our, a whole dedication to Dragon Maid and why we're able to gush about a slice of life show like that for, infamously 2 hours in, was it 1 or 2 hours back in the first podcast that we ever did? I think it was only 1 hour.
A fair bit over an hour. I think it was an hour
20
20 minutes, but don't quote me on that.
Okay, at least 1 hour for the first podcast that we've ever done with one another, and then at least another hour and a half in the dedicated season 1 and 2 podcast that we did for it. I feel like the reason we're able to, wax on about those shows for so much and glaze them the way we did, as opposed to like struggling to find things to say for an hour's worth of time for this particular block of episodes, is because Frieren has made the promise of a narrative. It's not like a Kino's journey where in that show, Kino is just going around from place to place and sort of reacting to her new environment and trying to deal with the situation, whatever situation she finds herself in. Whereas we're kind of doing that in Frieren too, but with the knowledge of we're working towards one final goal. Whereas I believe in Kino's journey, we're just wandering for the sake of wandering.
I mean, I haven't seen Kino's journey, and I don't think you have either. So
I haven't either, but I just, from what I've been told of what happens in Kino's journey, that's what I've been told happens in it.
But see, another thing is, for Dragon Maid, when I watch specifically Season 2, but this also holds very true for Season 1, it's a very intense feeling of joy with that show. It feels a lot more dense in the way it can portray just happiness and induce that on the viewer instantly, seemingly without effort, because Kyoto Animation puts all the charm they can into it, and obviously the original source material is still extremely solid on top of that, so it's just two great things coming together to make the greatest done experience you've ever experienced, to be a bit repetitious. But with Frieren, it's more like just a pleasant haze over your brain. And specifically, I think a lot of it is contributed to by the atmosphere and the animation and music and voice acting and all the stuff that makes
I think
an
I've got a
anime
good
an
analogy.
Sure.
Watching Dragon Maid is like eating candy, where it's like it's so.
I knew it'd be fucking food. I knew it'd be food. God damn it.
Yeah, watching Dragon Maid is like eating candy. It's really sweet. You can scarf as much of it down as you want. With and you only stop when you start to feel sick of it. And in this case, we have a very high sugar tolerance and a massive sweet tooth. Whereas I'd say Frieren is more like a hot chocolate. You can't just chug a hot chocolate right when you're done making it, or else you're gonna burn your fucking throat. You gotta take some time. You gotta take some little sips at first and slowly drink it, and you appreciate it in the longer time that you have to drink it.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair enough analogy. Although it's not like it's difficult to get episodes of Frieren down, because it is.
Yeah, no,
at
it's
the
not
end of
difficult.
the
It's just
day,
that you can't.
a great show.
It feels like a show you have to enjoy at its own pace, rather than Dragon Maid is like it's effortless. Like I don't have to. I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm trying to meet Frieren halfway here. I'm just saying there's definitely, like you said, there's an atmosphere to it, a haze that you have to let wash over you.
So I'm interested in what you'll think about this specific thought I had while watching Frieren, specifically last night. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, a lot of why I am able to buy into this show is because, I mean, first of all, it's gorgeously animated. It has a really great soundtrack that gets me in the mood to watch more of it.
The background art isn't shit.
The background art is incredible at almost every turn. And especially the pacing, which is slow, but just fast enough that it's like you're never bored while watching it. But it's still, keeping you at its own pace. And that's also a part of why it's enjoyable, because that pace, it's difficult to think of Frieren without that specific pacing that it has. And so what I got to thinking was, would I actually enjoy a manga version of this? Because Frieren was being gassed really hard when it was a manga still, and so clearly it, something about the manga is really good. Maybe it's artistically gorgeous. I haven't seen the art, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. But I'm thinking about what experiencing the manga version would be like for me specifically, and I was just like, I'm not sure if I'd enjoy that as much. I feel like it'd lose an entire, at the very least in the Iyashike segments specifically, I feel like it'd lose an entire point just for being a manga. Which is weird, because although manga isn't my preferred medium, it is rare for me to see a show that I wouldn't think would work as a manga. Whereas with this, it's not to say it'd be broken. It still would work at the end of the day. But so much of what I like about it is so bolstered by all the things that make it an anime specifically, that it's hard to imagine it as anything other than an anime. Though maybe it's just because it's well adapted.
I kind of get what you're saying. That's a bit of a tangent, but after we were done with the Cassie's recording, because I was so itching to get back to Anime of the Year Zom 100 with the cast and crew, I read ahead in the manga online a little bit just to see what to expect on the horizon, and I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna read the first chapter and first chapter or two to see where we're going. And, I'll just have that nugget of knowledge tucked away in my brain, and then I can get excited when season 2 maybe gets announced one day, and I can be excited about, oh, they're going to adapt that part, and then I'll be blind to the rest of it. Okay, so I'll be sated until then. 2 chapters turned into about 2, episodes worth of content. I think I've read enough of the manga that if season 2 were adapted or announced, I've read enough of the manga to cover, episodes 1 through 3, probably. And the pacing of it definitely felt like the pacing of a Zom 100 episode. I controlled that at my own pace because at the speed of my reading, but, the atmosphere of the manga felt very identical to the like tone, mood, and atmosphere of the anime, which is probably just goes to show how much they nailed the adaptation of it. With a show with a show and a manga like Frieren, I'd imagine that because Frieren so heavily relies on this atmosphere as one of its core strengths, that's helped by like the wonderful background art and the music and the pretty visuals, and how slow things happen in the manga, not necessarily at a pacing rate, but as a like the speed of events and speed of like actions that are taken. I think the manga might be like a lamer experience, but I'm sure people were probably, when they were gassing it, they were probably gassing it for the story content.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but I also, story content, but also so much of it is Iyashikei that it's like, you do really have to buy into that part of its appeal, which is why I'm kind of surprised it's surprised maybe isn't the right word, because it isn't surprising with such a great adaptation, but it's like, I guess it's not normal.
I bet it's
Iyashikei
probably
to be this.
easier for us to say this, having the anime be our first exposure to the story of Frieren, whereas I'm sure Frieren manga fans going into the anime are as happy as a clam, being like, oh, they nailed it, and it's so popular now.
Oh yeah, well they absolutely did nail it. It's one of the best
I think
adaptations.
if we
have
had
seen.
read the manga before the anime came out, and that was our first introduction to it, and then we watched the anime, I bet we'd be singing a similar tune.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel there's a part of my brain that's like, maybe I'm being too negative, because at the end of the day, once again, it's really good. We really like it.
No, see, your brain is being smart because we're talking more about like the meta around the anime adaptation versus the manga, and not talking about the actual content of these episodes because we have so little to say about them by themselves.
True. But yeah, I just had that thought while watching. Maybe it's not like that for other people. I tend to read manga way quicker than I want to whenever I'm consuming it, where I constantly have to remind myself to slow down and take in the art and try to imagine it as if it were actually happening, because my first instinct is to just read, go through the text as fast as possible, which is easy on a novel where you kind of, by the nature of the medium, have to go through it slowly because text is inherently kind of arduous. But I can read it relatively quickly because I read fairly often, as everyone does, not necessarily novels, but in general. But yeah, for the manga, I feel like I constantly, it'd be that thing where I'd have to remind myself, hey, go slowly in order to soak in this atmosphere, or else you're really not going to get a major appeal of the series as much as it was probably intended, would be my thought.
Yeah, but the manga doesn't have the Zoltrak theme, so it's kind of shit, right?
Yeah, in general, the fact that it doesn't have the soundtrack would be would also be a knock, just because it's such a good soundtrack. Evan Cole nailed it.
Yeah.
He has my name.
He does. I don't know if you've ever publicly announced that, but...
No, I have.
Okay, I was gonna say, did you like accidentally dox a part of yourself?
People know my name is Evan. That's not a dox. Good luck finding me among the thousands of Evans out there. Genuinely, have fun. It's one of the most common names out there.
I mean, because your second channel, people know what state you live in too, so maybe they can.
Oh no, you're gonna comb through all the Evans in Illinois, all the thousands of them still.
Well, you never know. Maybe they're just hundreds. But
maybe.
Back to Frieren, because I know this is probably going to be a point of contention for how quickly he came and went. How do you feel about Sein?
I like him, but why did he go so quick? I mean, I know he's coming back, but why did he go so quick?
Yeah, I am sad that he left so soon. Like, how many episodes did we have him for? Let's one. Let me
So
count.
I counted. I think it was 4.5 total.
Or
Because he leaves halfway through. I think it's. I'd have to.
yeah,
check
yeah,
the
4.5.
notes.
You're right.
Yeah, and I mean, I like the idea of him because he's this dude. He smokes, he drinks, he gambles. He's not very good at gambling and gets his possessions taken. And he's just kind of, in general, he's the closest thing Frieren could possibly have to, like, kind of an anti-hero dirtbag. He openly talks about the closest thing.
I would
because-
not call him an anti-hero. He's definitely
Well,
aside from
definitely
doing things
good
that priests normally shouldn't, he's definitely a hero because Hyder did the same thing.
Yeah, that's why I specified closest thing. But you're right, he is, at the end of the day.
I would say
a good
Ubel is
person.
much closer to an anti-hero than Sein is.
Ubel, how am I actually forgetting who that is?
It's the green-haired killer.
Oh, that girl. Oh, she's not an anti-hero, she's just a psychopath.
Well, yeah,
She's fucked up.
she's an anti-hero in the sense of the narrative where Fern is working with her right now, therefore
Fern
she has
is going to
be...
inevitably clash with her. Fern or Frieren. She ain't a hero. Nix the hero from her anti, and there you go. There's no way.
She's
Maybe she is, but no way.
She is not a pro shipper.
She's literally characterized first thing to be a psychopath.
Yeah,
And maybe
well,
she can eventually turn out to be one. But
we'll get into her later because I do like her
Yeah.
a lot from the little that we've seen of her so far. But going back to Sein, he's definitely a welcome addition to the party as an older character, a more adult character to act as sort of like an older brother or even like a father, not in the paternal sense, but like an authority sense to Fern and Stark, to whenever they get into trouble that Frieren lacks the communication and mediation skills to resolve between the two of them.
yeah, that I think is the most interesting part of him, because Frieren is Frieren. She doesn't do life very well, and Fern kind of takes care of her more than the other way around. And so having someone who, although is once again, into gambling and drinking and all that, is nonetheless, by necessity of being an adult, has to be on some level reliable and upstanding. Is able to solve these disputes between Fern and Stark. They're very small-scale emotional squabbles. Meanwhile, he's also playing viewer insert when he says, just kiss already, just start dating, go out.
Yeah, true.
We know you're going to do it inevitably. He's just like me for real. And I like him. He goes very quickly, though. Very quickly.
Only 4.5 episodes, and do we see him before the season ends? We've got 8 episodes left.
Probably not. I mean, I guess we got Kraft back again.
Yeah, but he
made a
only showed up
cameo.
the one time. Yeah. I don't. It's not like we're never gonna see him again. But how much longer? How many episodes did it take to see Kraft again? Was that coming up on 8?
But yeah, I'm not sure when he'll come back. If he'll come back in this season at all, because the arc that begins in the latter 3 episodes of this block seems to be taking a fair bit, and that'll probably take up most of, or at least half of, the next block we do, which is a good thing because I like that arc. But it also means that we're probably not seeing Sein again until the next season, which is weird because my big question, I guess, would be, why was he introduced now? What did the specific timing of introducing him at this current stage mean for his character, and why was that important? Because I don't think he does much that couldn't have come later, or like it doesn't feel like he does much of substance
Well,
within
the
those
reason
4.5
that they said
episodes.
they wanted him in the first place was because there were poisons around the area that they would need a priest to help them get through. But then that just kind of morphed into a let's get someone who knows how to let's get this guy on our team who at one point wanted to be an adventurer, but is now saying no, it's too late for me. It's too late for me to chase my dreams like that. And because Frieren sees herself in him, she's very stubborn about it. But then I guess in the end he's still adventuring, but now he's no longer adventuring with the crew. He's gone off to do his own thing in search of his best bro, the gorilla warrior.
I feel like what we needed from him
More
in order
episodes.
to make his stay feel like it had impact and meant something was for him to have like some kind of big emotional payoff at the very end right before he leaves. But it just kind of happens. It's not a particularly
The only things he does
heartrending moment.
Act as a mediator for when Fern and Stark get into their little marriage married couple squabbles, and then do the thing where he wakes up Frieren when that sleep flower monster curses the village and them to fall asleep, and then he wakes her up and she blasts it into oblivion.
Here's a funny story. I was legitimately super shocked when he left the party, because at the end of the episode before he leaves, he says, "Oh, I need to find my brother, but he's on the opposite end of the continent." But it shows the map, and it's, like, still in the vague direction of north. So I was like, oh, okay, so they're debating whether or not to take this detour together. But then he goes on his own, and I just assumed that Frieren and Fern and Stark were going to just come with him on this detour, because it's already a journey kind of about the detours in a way. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. Oh wait, hold on, no, he's going on his own? Wait, what? I did not see that coming. He didn't do anything. What? Why is he leaving?
I feel like if I were Mr. Frieren writer or Miss Frieren writer, I don't know who exactly writes this, but if I am, the Frieren author, what I would be doing, because this is following the manga, chapter for chapter, episode to episode. I would say we needed a couple more episodes with Sein in it. I would say 4.5 was much too short. I would say a much more comfortable number. If we're gonna have him leave halfway through an episode, probably at the very least, I feel like 6.5 would be a lot. But that's enough time to get used to him as a member of the crew, and we get attached to him enough so that way his leaving leaves more of an impact. But I was just kind of like, well, that sucks, because we're just getting to know the guy. Now I kind of feel like we're being robbed.
Yeah, it's like, I like the guy, but how much will I like him many years down the line when season 2 comes out, and I see him again for the first time in my real life, multiple years, right?
Well,
So it'll be like,
then it'll be
okay.
tying with the themes of Frieren, eh?
True. And so by that point, I'll be like, wait, what did he do again? Oh yeah, he's that guy who was there for like 4.5 episodes. Wait, what was his deal again? Oh yeah, he was kind of a dirtbag who smoked and drank, and he was like the adult guy. Wait, I don't really remember any specifics about what he did. Whatever, I'll just watch it anyway, because I'm not rewatching that just for saying. And it'll be that sort of deal, almost certainly. Or maybe Frieren will be good enough that I will rewatch it, and I'll be like, know what? I'm raring to go.
Here's a question I want to pose to you, just because I want to see what you have to say about it. Do you think we're going to take some time, like between like an entire episode or half an episode, intermittently throughout either, I don't know, this season at some point, or whenever there's a next season of Frieren, of cutting back to his journey just by himself, like dedicated half episodes to his journey? Or are we just gonna not hear from him until one day when he comes back?
That's an interesting idea, and that would be a decent way to handle it. Eventually we have this like big sprawling cast of characters that we can occasionally cut between. I feel like that would happen, definitely not in this season, or at least almost certainly not in this season, but sometime during the next season, during like a stretch of Yashike adventure episodes, I could see it being a thing.
Yeah,
So
for
I
the
don't
sake
think
of
it's
world
completely
building,
off the table.
I agree. For the sake of world building, I definitely would like to see episodes of him, in a hypothetical season 2, where we're checking in on the boy Sein on his quest to find the gorilla warrior, and he's remembering his times with Stark and Frieren and Fern. Maybe we even can think back to moments that we didn't see happen, that he can recall upon, and he has his own little arc, and maybe even we can even check in on Craft from time to time when he's doing his own thing. I feel like this is the kind of show that lends itself to world building and getting to see a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah, and speaking of world building, that's still solid as always. There's like this flower curse that puts an entire village to sleep. And even, yeah, like the small things of this awesome dwarf, Old Man Vol. He will always stick with me because he's the ultimate badass, right? So he's this like 400-year-old dwarf that has outlived his life expectancy, right? The life expectancy of dwarves is around like 300 years. He's turbo old for a dwarf. And he puts on this facade that he's old and senile to not talk to people. And it's actually left a little bit up in the air how senile he is, but he seems to be mostly of good head. That sounds very of good mind, I meant, but that sounded really sus out of context. Holy shit. But anyway.
Yeah, I think what you're looking for is that when it comes to, combat, he is always ready for that, but his, personal memories are getting, more and more hazy to the point where, and one of the most emotionally poignant moments in the entire show so far, for me at least, was when Vol asks Frieren if she remembers Himmel's face and voice, and because he has forgotten those features of his old wife, because his wife was human and he's a dwarf, so he naturally outlived her. And then he says, well, you know what, Frieren, I can't wait for you to defeat the Demon Lord. And Frieren's like, oh. And you realize that he's
he
like,
doesn't know.
He's losing his memories to his old age.
Yeah, but despite that, he does, keep conversations relatively well. He's mostly there. He's just a little bit of everywhere at the end of time, just a little bit. Just a burning memory is playing in the background very quietly in his mind, but that's about it, right? And he's on this journey to defend this specific village because it was the village that his wife wanted protected. And he's just stayed there at his post at all times in order to protect this place. And I just thought that was so cool. This idea of him just sitting at his post, not really talking to people, just staying there and asserting his presence until everyone at the village just accepts that he is there and now a part of their lives.
Yeah, that's cool. And once again, the moment of him telling Frieren about the Demon Lord, and she realizes that he's maybe more senile than he lets on, hit me hard, because that's one of my biggest innate fears of just growing old, is that I'm just gonna forget. My mind is just going to deteriorate, and with the passage of time, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Forgetting things is one of my biggest fears too, or really anything to do with my intellect. Not to say that I'm big smarty pants, not lose it in that way, but the intellect that all humans inherently have, the knowledge of one's self and perception of the world that people in general have, as opposed to like an insect or an animal. And that's one of the losing that is one of the most horrifying prospects to me. Like, just any brain damage, the idea of that, period, it terrifies me. Which is why I'll never become an alcoholic. Not because of social responsibility and diligence, but because of just fear of getting a wet brain and forgetting things more easily.
I I wonder if part of the reason why they introduced that, and then, we haven't seen this happen to any elf so far, and we've shown that elves have, very good memories. But what if, like, you know, has it, I forget, has it been confirmed that if elves are, like, actually ageless, or do they have a lifespan?
They do have a lifespan, as far as I know, anyway. I remember that being a thing. It's just that they live, once again, stupidly long, as
Yeah,
we
because
all
Frieren's
know.
at least 1,000 years.
Yeah, and the way Kraft was talking, he's even older than Frieren, I'm pretty sure. And he was saying, like, yeah, I'll definitely meet you again, Frieren. Even though there's barely any elves left, and Frieren's literally surprised that elves aren't extinct. Like, they're functionally extinct at this point because they don't often reproduce, and there's barely any of them left. And at some point, they will all die out. But nonetheless, they Kraft is still confident that they'll meet again, when that'll presumably be, that could be up to 500 years from when he's saying that.
Yeah, so I think it might have brought into play maybe the idea that if Frieren reaches the end of her elven lifespan, whatever length it may be, what if she starts getting senile and she starts losing her memories too?
Imagine having dementia for 100 years. Just think about that. You
I
everywhere at the
might
end of
kill
time
myself.
is 6 hours. Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, you'd be so senile that you'd just die from not being able to take care of yourself. At the very least, you'd need someone else with you at all times. And it's like, yeah, that's a horrifying thought. And that could be an interesting thing to explore. Obviously, the series almost certainly won't get to that point of Frieren's lifespan, because at that point, I mean, Fern's
Long
great great
dead.
great 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 grandchildren would be dead at that point.
Yeah.
But
And there's gonna be a lot of them too, because we know that Fern and Stark are gonna have 1,000,000 babies together.
yes, this is canon. At least 10 children. They're working their way up to 20 or so. They're fixing the birth crisis in their own way. They're
Can we
doing their
talk-
part.
Can we talk about how Fern and Stark are like the greatest couple in recent memory, yet they don't even have a defined relationship outside of the one that we're mostly projecting onto them?
Well, see, it's funny that you say mostly projecting, because in the first podcast, that was extremely the case, absolutely the case. Like, we just saw that they had a good dynamic and went, yeah, they're gonna be a couple. And then the author went, wow, they have a great dynamic with each other, and said, yeah, they're gonna be a couple. And so now they're gradually working their way up to becoming a couple. And it's bound to happen, because we keep getting all these... I want to say fan service. It's not sexual fan service. It is fan service for the people who have
soul.
long supported this ship.
It's fan service who if you get off to romance.
Exactly. It's so cute.
Yeah,
Dude, that
there's
frame
no
of-
oh, Stark walked in on me changing. Stark commented on my boobs.
Dude, the little frame, right, of just stick figure Stark and stick figure Fern. Like, she's walking across a log, and then tiny Stark in the distance grabs her hands to help her go down. Bro, my heart exploded, and I had to get sent to the ER. But then when it was repaired back together, it was twice as large because of swelling. All of this is horrifying, but what I'm trying to say is I loved it extremely.
I was gonna say, where are you going with this analogy? I love how Fern gets upset with Stark because because Stark didn't get a gift for Fern's birthday, but because he wanted to pick out a gift with Fern the way she did with him, but he didn't know how to ask her because he was like, well, I don't want to, sound lame. I feel like guys should just like know what to get a girl for her birthday, right?
Yeah, and that was a cute moment, and it's one of the moments where Sein is, helping them figure all this stuff out. He also mediates another argument between the two, which is admittedly probably my least favorite part of the entire block of episodes, just because it's another argument between them that I was like, okay, I've seen this before. I wasn't bored, but I was tapping out. I could feel myself tapping out just the tiniest bit. But at the same time, it's still Fern and Stark fan service of they're gonna get together. They're bickering
Yeah,
like teenage couples
I liked
should.
the little bit of how the reason that Fern was upset was not because that Stark got back at her with the the cold hands on the face, but that she was just terrified of the how strong his grip was on her shoulder, because it probably reminded her of of her like war torn village, and she
Yeah,
probably
and
got
also
physically mistreated back then.
and Stark being terrifyingly strong is a running theme with his character, because Eisen, who's a little bit of a scaredy cat himself, was also terrified of Stark's strength and tried to put the fear of God in him. And that's something I'm actually really interested in about Stark's character, because physically he's clearly being built up to be the strongest of definitely our main cast, but probably one of one of the strongest people, maybe not ever, but in a given town they go to, he's probably the one who can throw his weight around the most physically. And
Yeah.
that's interesting to me.
He the one fight that he had with the demon girl from the last episode, I didn't I rewatched the fight scene between that and Fern and the demon dude like during this block of episodes, because I wanted to find out other places where they use the soul track theme. And I watched it back, and during that fight I was like, like the animation's nice, but I don't really get the fight. He says that the demon has no weight to her attacks, and that's why he is able to beat her. But she like bodies him throughout most of the fight, and the only reason he doesn't lose is because he keeps getting back up.
He's saying that that she rather has no weight behind her attacks compared to Eisen, who could absolutely pummel him, is what I think
Okay.
he's getting at. Because
Okay, 'cause
the fact that he can get back up is the reason why she's not as good as Eisen.
okay, because I was like, she was like, she like slammed him against trees and shit, and so okay, well she clearly has some weight behind her attacks, and then when he delivers the killing blow is because she swings the axe and it like lodges itself in his gut, but she can't like cleave him all the way through. So that was what that I think that's probably where I got stuck up on.
Yeah, but
He
by
just
the way, I'm
doesn't
going to be
do a lot
mentioning
of
Linny again later once we have an inevitable discussion. You'll know what I mean in a minute.
uh yeah, the best moment Stark gets to shine in these episodes is when in this one of these little side ventures, the gang are stopped by a nobleman in this little kingdom where he pays them a year's worth of money to have Stark pose as his newly dead prince son, because at a party, because his village is in the midst of a conflict of I don't know if it was a full scale war, but it's definitely a conflict at the border, and the son had died. So and since Stark looks like him so much, the nobleman needs him to pose as the prince. So that way his village's morale does not decrease during a time of war. And in doing so, they has to learn how to do proper etiquette, and Fern does too, because she's going to be the lady accompanying him at the soiree. And they have this cute little dance sequence together, and I'm sure Fern's attraction to Stark leveled up like three times that day.
Yeah, so what the dance scene reminds me of is that for random cuts in this show, like, okay, the entire thing in general looks stellar front to back, obviously, but there will be specific cuts, like that dance scene, or like, for example, one that comes to mind is in one episode, I forget which one it was off the top of my head, but near the beginning, Fern rests her head against Frieren's shoulder, and it's just ridiculously smoothly animated for no reason, because they got a really good animator to do those cuts. Because, as far as I know, I mean, maybe things are different with the specific production, but you generally aren't compensated more for adding more frames to an animation, as far as I know. So, like, they're just doing that because they're passionate, man. Or, like, when Frieren casts the location spell to find that, I think it was a ring that Himmel had given her, it just ridiculously smooth animation for that scene. Like, I nutted. Probably twice within the span of that single minute, honestly, because it was so well animated.
Yeah, it's the kind of loving attention to detail and passion for the craft that, makes you appreciate the medium of animation, and at the same time makes you want to take Fern's head and Stark's head and smash their mouths together over and over, just saying kiss, kiss.
Yeah, and speaking of that scene where she's looking for the ring, I thought the ship between Himmel and Frieren was just something that Twitter made up. I didn't know
it's real.
that it was a thing.
It's definitely
Like, it's
real.
a thing.
I mean, did you not notice even before this episode that Himmel was absolutely crushing on Frieren?
I mean, it wasn't explicit about it. I didn't get that implication. Maybe I just am dumb and didn't see it. But no, it wasn't until he put that ring on her finger, before that, when he realized what the ring meant, because he totally knows what it means. And that look of recognition on his face,
like
that was
that,
the moment
he
where it dawned
knows.
on me.
Yeah, no,
and...
I think that's gonna come into, if we ever get to the end of this journey, Frieren's gonna either express a love back to him, if she's able to talk to his ghost, and feel sad that she can't truly reciprocate it now that he's no longer alive, but no, with the knowledge that she would has come to love him come to realize her love for him over the course of these centuries.
Yeah, well, there's also this interesting tidbit about how elves don't feel, I'm pretty sure it was sexual and romantic attraction, but at the very least, they don't feel sexual attraction. Which is interesting when you consider romance and how humans engage with it. And how Himmel's feelings probably couldn't be reciprocated, really.
And
it's not
it's
to
a
the
story
fullest
of her
extent.
finding love when she thought she didn't have time for that. I am all for anti-aromantic propaganda.
Anti-aro ace propaganda.
I never said the ace part, but I'm just saying, everyone wants a partner.
All right, so, okay, so you mentioned figuring out about the Himmel crush, before this block of episodes. What tipped you off to it? I'm genuinely curious, because I did not get that impression.
Because he was always acting like a cornball to her. He was always being the nicest to her. Always, reaching out to her the most. Because he always had a rapport with Hyder and Aizen, but you the way that he talked to her, would always say things about how handsome he was. Yeah, I thought you could just tell.
I thought he was just a cornball in general. The reason why
I mean,
it was
he
so
is.
Frieren folk. Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that before the ring recognition moment where I popped off.
Nah, it's always has been. It's truly one of those astronaut with a gun always has been moments.
Always has been. Then the entire world is just Himmel's face, but warped so that it creates a sphere and it's turning around.
Let's see. I guess the last thing we could talk about is the mage exam arc, because now we've gone full shonen, baby. We're in the Chunin / Hunter exam.
Yeah, I definitely got Hunter exam arc vibes from this, specifically the one where they're in that forest. I think it's an island, but this island with a foggy forest on it, and they have all these crazy fights and have to be self-sufficient and whatnot. It's very similar.
Was it Greed Island or was
that.
it something different?
I don't think it was Greed Island, because isn't that an arc later in the show?
Yeah, also it's a video game, so I think you probably would have mentioned that first and foremost.
A video? I don't fucking know any anime-related video games.
No. Greed Island is a video game that the characters get sucked into.
Oh.
In Hunter x Hunter.
That happens in Hunter x Hunter?
Yes. Yeah, at one point it
okay, well then
it
definitely wasn't.
Okay.
But yeah. So this is reminiscent of those arcs, and is the best part of the block of episodes, like easily.
Yeah, my to jump into it right away. My favorite aspect of it is this ideological conflict that we get between Ubel and Werbel, who are two, I think they're both either yeah, whatever. They're non first class mages and they're taking the exam, but they have this ideological back and forth on the nature of killing because Ubel is this murderous mage girl who doesn't, kill someone, for no reason, but has no qualms about killing someone who, she feels like she would need to kill. Whereas Werbel, as a captain of a mercenary squad for an army, though hesitant to take lives and as needs time to gather himself and steel his nerves to kill people, according to himself, he does always go through with the killing, even if it's with women and children who we see him fight in flashbacks in wars. So he has, at the very least, if we're going by trust the narrator, he has killed children before in battle.
Based.
Yeah. I could not agree more. Yeah, so just
Ubel.
seeing...
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, seeing those two, me, I sustain my life force from ideological conflicts in media. So them just having a little powwow on, would like you dare to judge me about killing when you've probably killed, like what kind of killing have you done? That sustains my feed.
Yeah, so something I like about Werbel, I think you said his name was, the dude with the white hair. Like,
Yeah.
it's sort of a bait and switch, in a sense, like a mini bait and switch, because his design would tell you, oh yeah, he's just into killing, and that's what he says he was going to do to Fern at the beginning, when he's like, oh man, I was gonna kill you, but you kinda did a good job of blocking my attacks. But now we know that, oh, he would have hesitated very heavily before killing her, but probably
Or maybe he,
himself.
at the very least, he probably had to psych himself up to jump her like that.
Yeah, almost certainly. And it's this idea of like him, wanting to be, like first play or to get to the end of this exam and not fail out, and eliminate this team so that they can stop fighting. Or like so that the team will be eliminated, rather, to be more specific with my language. That is interesting to me because you think, oh, he's just a psychopathic killer like Ubel. But no, there's a gradient of difference between them, and by the end, I was really getting into Werbel as a character. Especially his dynamic with the girl who he saved way back when she was just a kid. And yeah, like just that dynamic is endearing, and seeing how
I love how
he does have blood on his hands, but he's generally heroic.
Yeah, I love how his power ties in with his hesitation to killing, because you'd think having a power to freeze someone in place just by having them in your field of vision and keeping them there would make you like the perfect killing machine, because all it would take is, oh, look at someone, you are no longer able to move and defend yourself, now I can come in and jam this knife into your throat. But because he does not like enjoy killing for the sake of it and needs to, he'll do it if he has to, but he needs to like, psych himself up to do so. It's like it kind of adds this level of, damn, that's kind of fucked up that you have to bring yourself to do this, and they're just like sitting there. If Ubel wasn't, this monster who enjoys the act of killing, and was just probably like, oh yeah, I kind of vibe with you, Werbel. Like, if this is one of those child soldiers that he had to use this on, imagine being trapped in that, and he's like, you're about to die, but now you have to like sit there and just wait for him to like bring himself to kill you.
Yeah, and No, I just like his character a lot. And something this arc does a good job of in general is get you, at the very least, interested, if not invested, in a lot of the other characters that it introduces and a lot of the other squads that have been created. Like, okay, there's the two girls that Frieren is with who are totally lesbians and just don't realize it yet, who are constantly squabbling with each other.
Absolutely.
And they're both
100%.
super
No lies
lovable.
detected. Yeah. They are
no lies at all.
and
Dude,
Kane.
the scene where the one girl, right? So the one girl is asking for compliments from the other. And she's like, "Oh, compliment me more." You know, I respond well to positive affirmation because she's trying to, do flying magic. She keeps giving her compliments. Then she eventually says, "You're cute when you smile." And then the other girl says, "Ew, you're gross." And she just kicks her off the cliff. It's beautiful. I need this kind of relationship in my life, minus the being kicked off a cliff.
Nah, yeah, that's what makes you a coward. I'll take all three of it.
Look, the point is, they're perfect. I love them. I love every scene they're in. I love how Frieren is just kind of the only sane one in the group. Like, her life, she's not well put together generally.
All she can do is make an
these
uwu
two.
face in the face of their bickering.
Dude, it's the same expression each time, but I love it because it's the exact expression you'd imagine her making when she sees these two people bickering constantly. I love it. And there's also, once again, Ubel and Werbel. I'm sure we'll get more into Ubel eventually. And then there's the one, I don't know his name, but he's got a monocle and he's like this business guy. Denken. Oh, yeah. Because I'm pretty sure Denke is think in German. I'm pulling that from repressed memories of taking German class in high school. So forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it means think, which I'm not sure what that has to do with his character, but maybe we'll see. And,
I don't know.
He's definitely setting himself up as, a decently interesting threat to the characters. Not the biggest threat, obviously, because there's Ubel. She's gonna be the major villain of this arc. I can already... my villain senses are tingling, and I'm pretty sure she's gonna be one of the main rivals.
What's interesting about Ubel is that she kind of has, like, the same face as the demons, but she is established to be a human. I thought there might like be leading into a bait and switch where either she is, demon related, like maybe a demon had a child with a human and she's got, demon blood in her, or is she just that, such an evil human that she gives off the appearance or the aesthetic of a demon.
I think it's the latter, but the idea of her being like a human demon hybrid is actually really fucking interesting.
Because they say that demons are incapable of feeling love and like positive emotions. But like, what happens when you combine, the lifelessness of and callousness of a demon who can only, project emotions and like take on faux interpretations of them versus a human who can feel it all? Is Ubel the result?
Be psychopathy?
Yeah, I guess psychopathy, but they can empathize with them. They have like a greater understanding of it. I don't know.
Who knows?
Whatever her backstory is, I think it's gonna be a good one.
Dude, I love the way that Ubel is introduced, right? So she gets jumped by 3 bandits, and then Kraft seems like he's protecting her from them. However, then there's the reveal. Yo, I saw some bandits, like their mangled, chopped up corpse buried in the woods. Yeah, and then I saw you, and I saw that you have killer's eyes, and I was protecting the bandits from you, because it was the best way to protect life. Because he's just a monk doing what he can to protect as many people as possible. Yeah, he
kicked their asses to save them from getting killed by her.
Yeah, and she, like, actively wants to kill people. She wants to get into fights. She wants to beat them up and kill them.
Yeah, her magic is like cutting magic. It reminded me most of Sukuna's powers from JJK.
Yeah, it's that, but just not on, you know, a fucking galactical scale of power.
As far as we know. Maybe I don't know, maybe she solos Sukuna.
True. Maybe she could take him on any day. But more likely, she is just an extremely powerful sorcerer. And by the way, she's killed one of the, I think one of the tournament organizers.
Yeah, the last time
year,
she took the exam,
last time
according
it was
to
happening.
the instructors, is that she failed the exam because she killed a first class mage instructor. So her power is at least on the, they make a point to say that, it's not just about power, there's technique, application, skill, control, all these different things. She has enough, talent or whatever to take out a first class mage. So she practically might as well already be a first class mage.
Yeah, and I think she's a really interesting antagonist role that is inevitably going to be filled right now. We're in the stage where she isn't openly, going to be going up against our main characters, but it's gonna happen, and it's gonna be Kino when it happens. She also just has a great character design. She stupidly hot.
If you give your character green hair, I will be attracted to her.
Okay, so we need to have this discussion. Is she the hottest character in the show?
Let me think. Of the main ones that they're not just one-offs.
No, of all the characters, all of them.
All of them, including the green-haired glasses girl in the uniform.
Including the green-haired glasses girl in the uniform.
By that going, no, but if we're talking, the actually important characters, I'd say Fern still.
Oh, damn. Okay. So,
I mean,
the reason why oh, okay.
I was gonna say, I think Fern is just, cuter.
I can see that. So I have the reason why I'm bringing this up, I have an oddball pick. I hadn't realized it as of last podcast, but upon further reflection, and upon her design just never leaving my brain, I think I actually like Linny the most, just in terms of aesthetic appeal.
It is kind of appealing where she's, this horned demon girl in, prim proper attire, where as opposed to
the idea of this
a demon Aura,
pink-haired demon with twin tails who's completely deadpan is just the most attractive thing in the universe to me. Just that combination.
See, talk like that. If you let God hear that, you're never gonna see the pearly gates.
Dog, I'm an atheist. Do you think I'm seeing the pearly gates anyway? I'm already going way down under to a fiery demise. This won't be helping nor harming me.
Yeah, her design's all right. I think I know. I feel like I get all my deadpanness with Fern by default, and then have the occasional spurts of happiness from her.
I just like the aesthetic of Linny and think she's stupidly pretty. I hadn't realized it as of last podcast, but now I'm Linny pilled. I can spread the good word, the gospel of Linny. Linny pilled.
Yeah, you can go on Reddit and start / r/Church of Linny.
r/Church of Linny. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's already one like that for Rio from Bochi, Church of Rio.
Yeah, I wonder how many years it'll take to get 10 members.
Hey man, Frieren's pretty popular. You might achieve that if you start right now by the end of the year.
True. I might start it as a joke. But anyway, well, joke in quotations because she is objectively the hottest character. But that discussion aside.
Yeah, I think the last
really
thing
like Ubel.
Yeah, I think the last thing to really talk about is that the whole point of this First Class Mage Association, the reason why so many people are going crazy, so many people signing up, is because there's this elf who's the founder of the Continental Magic Association, who is in charge of grading mages and whatnot. Sere, who is running this campaign to find new first class mages. But so again, she wants them bad. So in exchange, she's like, all right, anyone who becomes a first class mage, I will personally bestow upon you any one spell that you so desire. So that's why
She's
people are like going
described
up in a
as a
tizzy.
living grimoire, which I love.
Yeah, because she's like the most powerful magic user in the world.
And she has all the fucking spells. Just pretty much every spell that's ever been invented. Which... oh, and by the way, she's the girl at the end of the first OP.
Yeah,
We finally
the one who
figured
looks
it out.
evil for some reason. But so that got me confused. Like, is she like secretly evil, or is she like?
Well, think about it like
morally
this:
gray?
she has spells that could solve all of humanity's problems, and she's just having
She
people
chooses
compete
not to
for
use
them.
them.
She's just keeping them to herself.
Yeah,
So
it
who
would
knows?
be. I hope if we get into her character, she's introduced more as like a lackadaisical god who's like, I care not for the whims of these mortals. Like, yeah, I could probably like give them spells that could cure cancer, but it wouldn't be so much funnier if I watched them like, squirm and try to figure it out themselves when I could just say it's like hiding a treat, like a toy from your dog, and watch him just like search all over the room when in reality I've had it behind my back the whole time.
God, isn't life so much more fun with natural disasters and cancer and death and despair? Isn't that so funny?
To an elf who can live forever, is like the probably the most unkillable elf ever because she's the grand magic poobah, probably.
Yeah, true. And that would be a really interesting concept for a character. But yeah, I mean,
like
I'm
her immortality
interested
and her strength just makes her like, yeah, I'd like. Why should I care about literally everything else that happens here? When I can A, do nothing and outlive it all, and B, if anything, comes knocking on my door, I just blast it with my, built-in magical nuke that the magic nuke that I am.
Yeah, and on the topic of the ending frame of the first OP, well, not literally the ending frame, but whatever. What do you think of the second OP?
It's nice. I like the color palette on a whole lot. Probably even more than the colors that they use in the first OP. But definitely not. The song's not as good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be real with you. I watched it the first 2 times. I then started skipping it. The ED is a later verse of the same song, which I do really like. I'm a fan of the song. And it's stop motion claymation.
Stop motion, baby!
Yeah, and it's cute. I definitely still prefer how unique the style of the first ED was, though. That first ED has really grown on me. I love it.
Yeah, if you introduce stop motion, you automatically win. That's the insta win button for me.
It is based, but also, goddamn, the first ED is so good. That's all I'm gonna say. It might make an appearance on my nominations for Best ED for next year's Casty. Or I guess technically this year's, but it's gonna come out next year.
You could have nominated it for the last one because it technically debuted in 2023.
I thought the rule was that you couldn't put down shows that hadn't finished airing. Could have sworn that was a rule for that one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you did. Here, we can check after the podcast.
Yeah.
I thought it didn't sound right either, but I read it. But we can discuss that later. Right now, we're talking about Frieren.
Yeah, honestly, I think we're kind of done talking about Frieren now, because I think we've gone through every point that we wanted to make.
Yeah, all the major ones. I mean, I guess I really like the strategy that's being employed in the exam arc where Frieren's team is freezing the lake and putting mana all over the other puddles all around because the bird they're trying to capture doesn't like mana, and, freezing an entire lake with magic is a pretty vocal and obvious way of declaring, hey, the bird won't be anywhere near here ever again. So... I like that element of it. It gets your noggin jogging, it keeps you on edge and keeps you watching. And overall, I think it picked up in the final 3 episodes, but the first 5, they were good, they were great even, but they were not kinography, as the kids say and as I also say.
Yeah, I feel like with this show that I do like it still hovering around like 8 out of 10 territory for me, nothing lower. But I the only way that I see it climbing up to like 9 or even 10 out of 10 status if these last 8 episodes hit as well as these last 3 did.
I think it will end up being a light 9 for me by the end, just because this exam arc seems to be quite long compared to what we've had so far. And so I mean, I'm a huge fan of this arc so far. It's the best the show has been since the first 4 episodes. And so I think that it's going to end up as a light 9. Right now it's hovering probably more around a strong 8, honestly. Strong 8 to light 9. I think it'll be a light 9 by the end. But I highly doubt it'll ever be a 10. Like, that would be a huge feat within just 8 episodes left.
I feel like what they've done with
who
Sein
knows?
has already discluded it from achieving 10 status. Unless
Yeah,
they
I mean, hey,
do
if
something wildly smart with them that I did not see coming.
If Beatrix being handled like that makes it so that Zom 100 can't be a 10, I think what they did with Sein probably precludes this from being a 10. But otherwise, I'm still hooked. I enjoy watching it. I am not bored at all while I am, engaging with this anime. Overall, I think it's good. Maybe the tiniest bit overhyped, but you know what?
I wouldn't
It's
call
still
it overhyped.
overall a good time.
Well, actually, I take that back. It does not deserve the #1 spot on my anime list. But if we're going by that metric,
nothing that gets that spot ever deserves it.
I don't know. I still haven't seen Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, so maybe it does deserve that.
Well, I'm sure Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is as good as they say it is, but I'm talking about all the random seasonals that get up there. They're never a 10 out of 10 show.
Yeah, you're right. But Bochi was close. Bochi's the closest that's ever come to being true.
Yeah, but even Bochi doesn't feel
and the
right
later seasons
at the top of the list.
And the later season
I don't know.
of Kaguya.
Yeah. Oh, no, I feel like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is a good thing to have at the top, but this is getting wildly off track, so I'm just gonna wrap things up here before we dive into just a completely tertiary discussion.
Yeah, so that'll bring this episode of Castaway Anime to an end. If you enjoyed it, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode. We got Undead Unluck and Solo Leveling on the way, as well as the big return to Bleach next month with the Arrancar Arc. That's hard to say 5 times fast.
Arrancar Arc, Arrancar Arc, Arrancar Arc, Arrancar. That is really hard, holy shit. Arrancar Arc.
I was trying to be quiet to invite you to try it, and I'm glad that you picked it up in the end. Yeah, that'll do her for this episode of Castaway Anime. I'm Neon Manta.
And I'm Crunchy Bagels.
And you'll see us next time.